Hello students, welcome to Legacy Academy. Today we are going to discuss about the new inclusion that has happened in the classical language list of India. So what are these new languages which has been included in the list and what is the significance of such inclusion for the languages? That is what we are trying to discuss in this particular video. So first of all, to give you the background of this particular issue, the Union Cabinet recently has extended the classical language stack to overall 5 new languages. These are Marathi, Pali, Prakrit, Assamese as well as the Bengali language. Before that, there were other languages such as Tamil, Sanskrit, Telugu, Kannada, Malayalam and Odia which already were enjoying the classical language status in the India. Now, following the demands from various states, the UPA1 government had decided to create a category of Indian languages that is referred as classical languages, and it was during the UPA1 regime the policy were laid down and the criteria were basically defined that how a language can be selected and they put into this particular list. Now, let us try to understand in more detail about the early classical languages. So, on the October 12th, 2004, the Tamil language became the first Indian language to receive the classical status. The reason given was due to its high antiquity and rich literary tradition. Thus, under the Ministry of Culture, the government decided to put a linguistic experts committee which will be under the Sahitya Academy to examine proposals for the classical languages status from various state and bodies, and based on this proposal it will be the linguistic expert committee which will determine whether the language can be included or should not be included under the classical language list. Now, if you look at the time frame under which the languages were included as classical language, so as we discussed, Tamil became the first language in the month of October 12, 2004. Then in the same year, in the following month of November, after the setting up of the linguistic expert committee, the Sanskrit was granted the classical language status as well. Thus, after 4 years in year 2008, the two other southern Indian languages of Telugu and Kannada were included in classical status. Then 5 years later in 2013, we have the inclusion of the Malayalam, which is largely spoken in the state of Kerala. And then before the recent inclusion, the last inclusion in the classical languages happened in year 2014, when the Odia language spoken in the state of Odisha was included in the classical language list. So, if we try to understand about the criteria on basis of which criteria the linguistic expert committee determined a language should be included or not. So, this year the LEC has unanimously revised the criteria for classical status, which includes following criteria. The first criteria is that the language should have high antiquity of early text and recorded history over a period of minimum 1500 to 2000 years. That means the language in its original form or in its present form should have been spoken for at least 1500 to 2000 years continuously. Second, a body of ancient literature or text should be present within that language, which is considered a heritage by the generations of speaker. Third, language should have epigraphic or inscriptional evidences. That means the language should be written somewhere on the inscriptions that was used to be erected, and basically we can say inscriptions that were used to be erected by the kings of the earlier times. Then last is the knowledge should have a knowledge text, especially prose text in addition to poetry. So, if all of these criteria are fulfilled, then a language can be considered to be included in the classical language list. Now, following this, the committee recommended the addition of the 5 new classical languages which was approved by the Union Cabinet. Now, let us try to look at each of these languages one by one. So, the recent language that has been selected to be included in the classical language tag is the Marathi language. The inclusion of Marathi has came after a decade since the proposal was first of all put by the state government in the year 2013 itself. Now, if you look at the Marathi language itself, it is believed that the language has descended from the Maharashtri Prakrit. Now, Maharashtri Prakrit is something that we can call as the form of Prakrit which was spoken in the western region of Maharashtra, and also Maharashtri Prakrit is believed to be the official language of one of the most notable kingdoms of medieval India, that is the Satavahanas. Thus, it is claimed also as the first among the Prakrit languages, but overall we can say that this claim is heavily contested. Now, if you look at the oldest evidence of the Marathi language, it is from the stone inscription that is situated in the Pune district, dated to the 1st century BC. And the earliest evidence of the more modern Marathi we talk about can be traced to the copper plate inscription that is found in the Satara region of Maharashtra, dated to 739 C. So, this is overall what we can say, a brief history of the Marathi language. The second language to be included here is Bengali and the Assamese. So, the West Bengal and Assam state government has also sought classical status for their respective language. In this context, if we try to understand about the Bengali language first of all, so Bengali language is believed to have originated from the Magadhi Prakrit, which is another form or variant of Prakrit, and it was believed to be the official language of the Magadha Empire or Magadha Code, specifically can say, which basically used to rule across the states of Bihar, Uttar Pradesh and extending all the way up to West Bengal. Now, the exact date in which the Bengali emerged from the Magadhi Prakrit is something that is contested, but the scholars have put it somewhere around 6th to the 12th centuries. Also, if you talk about the modern recognizable form of Bengali, it received its modern recognizable form somewhere in the 2nd millennium of Common Era, and the Indo-Aryan vernacular likely differentiated itself in the form of Assam before Bengal. That means what we can say, that the Assamese language developed first, followed by the Bengali language in the West Bengal. Now, if we talk about the other language, that is Prakrit. Now, Prakrit itself, we can say that there is no single Prakrit language, but it is divided into multiple different forms. So, a group of closely related Indo-Aryan languages whose defining feature was that they were the language of the masses, especially during the time of Buddha and Mahavir, as opposed to Sanskrit, which at that time was largely restricted to the elites and the high literature. So, it is believed by the scholars or historians, by the time of the Buddha, the masses were speaking languages which were much simpler than Sanskrit. And these were the languages that is referred as Prakrits, of which several dialects have been attested. Thus, the language of popular heterodox religion that emerged in the 1st millennium CE is something that how we can define Prakrit language as. And the last language to talk about is the Pali. So, Pali is likely a form of somewhat Sanskritized Magadhi Prakrit, the form or variant of Prakrit that was spoken in the Magadha Empire, and is believed to be the language of the Theravada Buddhism, and the canon of the Tipitaks have been written in the same language of Pali. And Tipitaka is something that we can call as a very, very important literature in the Buddhism. Now, it is considered to be the language of the Buddha himself, in which Buddha used to preach, in which Buddha used to actually talk with the people, and the Pali survived in places like even outside of India, such as Sri Lanka, Myanmar, Thailand, Laos and Cambodia, where the Buddhism spread at a very fast rate from the India, and also it is these regions where you have the Theravada school of Buddhism that has prospered. So, that is why Pali is something that we can say is not only restricted to India, but it is kind of international language and also a very, very ancient language. So, that is why all these 5 languages has been chosen to become a classical language of India. Now, we talk about the significance of classical tag as per the officials of the Ministry of Culture. They believe that it will emphasize a broader cultural and academic impact on the language itself, and also not only within the country, but even at an international level. Now, in this context, the Ministry of Education has or takes many steps to promote languages when it gets a classical status. For example, 3 specific central universities were established in year 2020 for the promotion of Sanskrit, as it is a classical language and ancient language. Similarly, the Central Institute of Classical Tamil was set up in 2008 to facilitate the translation of the ancient Tamil text into different languages, and so that the people can also able to understand this, and also to offer courses in the Tamil language itself. Similarly, there has been the development or what we can say the center of excellence have been set up for the study of other languages, classical languages such as Kannada, Telugu, Malayalam and Odia. So, these are the steps that are taken to promote a classical language by Ministry of Education. Similarly, if you look at the national education policy, it also calls for the inclusion of classical languages in the school education as well. And last, we talk about the manuscripts in these languages. They will be digitized for the greater access to the scholars. So, not only the promotion, but preservation of the language also becomes a striking feature once a language gets a classical status list. So that is all about this particular video. I hope you understood about the recent inclusion of the new languages in classical status and the advantages and overall brief overview of all these languages. Thank you very much.